Hey guys, how are you? So, we haven't talked about Seattle or Minneapolis in a while, and there's some really interesting things going on in both of those cities. So, I want to touch on that a little bit in this video. And then stick around later today. I have a video coming out about Lady Gaga. And then I have another video coming out, and I'm going to tell some personal stories about when I've been called a racist to my face for simply supporting the president and his policies. I have some awesome audio I want you to listen to. And I've also thought long and hard about what to do and how to react when someone calls you that. So I'm going to give you a little bit of advice in case you ever run into that situation, because it's just plain wrong and it's got to stop. And, I think conservatives sometimes are a little bit too polite, and we're so afraid of being called those names that we don't speak out. And we need to be a little bit more aggressive when people say that. And I don't mean aggressive in the sense of violence or anything like that, but you need to stand up for yourself and shut it down. And I have some audio that you're just gonna love, so that's later on today. But let's talk about Seattle and Minneapolis. First, I want to talk about Seattle. I don't know if you remember this woman. This is a city council member in Seattle. Let me try to read her name. I'm sorry if I butcher it. Kshama Sawant, I believe is her name. And if you remember her, before the CHOP happened, when all the protests started happening in Seattle, she is the one who actually unlocked the door and let protesters into the city hall building where they occupied. She also led protesters to Mayor Jenny Durkin's house, which made the mayor feel pretty unsafe. So that's who this is, and what's happening right now with her is pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever actually seen or heard of this moving forward, but this is from Como News. This is the local news station in Seattle. So a judge rules that recall efforts against Seattle City Councilwoman Kshama Sawant can proceed. So people have, since all the Chaz Chop protesting and all that started, residents have been pretty upset and have been signing petitions to get her recalled. And it seems like they're moving forward with this. So I don't know what's going to happen with this, but there's 4 counts that she's being, do you call it being charged? I don't know. We'll just read it. Okay. So according to the Washington State Constitution, an elected official can be recalled if that politician has committed some act or acts of malfeasance or misfeasance. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. While in office, or who has violated his oath in office. So she's being accused of violating her oath on 4 counts, and I'll read you what those 4 counts are. The judge found that 4 complaints cited in the recall petition against Sawant did rise to the level of malfeasance, including the first one. Sawant violated city and state laws by misusing city resources and her official authority when she opens Seattle City Hall in June to protesters who staged a late-night demonstration inside the building. So that's important to point out, too. This was at night when she let them in. So this is after hours, not even when they're open. Number 2, Sawant participated in march to Mayor Jenny Durkin's house last month, causing a breach that could have compromised the mayor's personal safety. Because of Durkin's previous work as federal attorney, her home address is not widely known for security concerns. I didn't know that. Number 3, Sawant delegated hiring and firing decisions of her office staff to her outside political groups identified as the National Executive Committee and Seattle Executive Committee of the Socialist Alternative. So she's a socialist. Number 4, Sawant misused city resources in promoting a ballot initiative earlier this year regarding the passage of new tax in some of the city's largest employers. So they are moving forward with this. Now, I know that City Council also just voted to fund her attorney fees. So we'll see what happens with this. This is really interesting. She's also one of the city council members who voted to defund their police. I don't know if you remember, there was a whole thing, but they voted to cut their police's budget by 14%. And it gets even more interesting because, a lot of people, when I post these videos, and I completely understand, I'll get a lot of people that say, well, you know what, the residents voted these people into office, so they deserve what they get. And I completely agree with that and understand. But in this particular case in Seattle, 3 of the city council members that voted to defund the police actually ran on the platform that they wanted to increase funding for police, and they promised to hire even more police officers. And I saw an interview with a few residents that voted for these city council members that felt completely betrayed, and they felt lied to because they ran on this platform and that's what they voted for, and then they switched it later on when it became, I guess, politically convenient to want to defund the police. And if you're somebody that lives in Seattle, please comment and let us know what you think about all this. So that's Seattle as of now, and this is something that I'm going to pay really close attention to see how this moves forward. Will she be recalled? I have no idea. Now let's go to Minneapolis. So this is pretty funny. You're going to like this. Lisa Bender is the president of the city council in Minneapolis, and I just want to remind you of who she is. Also, keep in mind that the city of Minneapolis voted to decrease the budget by, I believe, $1.1 million of their police officers. They also voted to completely disband and dismantle the police department. And Lisa kind of headed that way. And I want to remind you of who she is. So let's look at a few clips from her from a few months ago.
Do you understand that the word dismantle or police free also makes some people nervous? For instance, what if in the middle of the night my home is broken into? Who do I call?
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege. I know that that comes from a place of privilege. I know that that comes from a place of privilege. I know that that comes from a place of privilege because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality where calling the police may mean more harm is done. And so in the very immediate, we have to lean into whatever changes we can make in our existing police department. As a white person, I want to say to my white neighbors, if you're experiencing a fear or lack of safety for the first time, you're experiencing something that our neighbors of color live with every day. And I invite you to open your hearts and listen to our neighbors, to step back and center the voices of our communities that have been impacted by community violence and police violence in our efforts to move forward, and to examine your discomfort, to think with compassion what it has felt like to live with the fear that you may be feeling for the first time for your whole life, to fear for the lives of your children. That is my commitment, and I invite you all to join me in that work.
My favorite part about both of those clips is the reaction, and you can kind of see it for a split second on the CNN news anchor's face when she's questioning her. Now, to dredge up that kind of reaction from a CNN news anchor, you know you're bat crazy. That takes talent. So since those interviews and since the city council in Minneapolis has voted to disband and defund the police, there has been a huge uptick in crime. Lots of police officers have resigned and they're not responding to calls the way that they used to. And you and I both know that is an obvious consequence of your elected officials continuously demonizing your police department. You know, these officers are putting their lives on the line every single day, and they don't even have support from their elected officials, and they're voting to dismantle them. So this is Lisa Bender just a few days ago in a meeting with the chief of police because she is alarmed now that there's been an uptick in crime and police aren't responding to calls. So let's look at that.
I did want to circle back to the first question that Councilor Fletcher asked, and I know this is a challenging question, but I also hear from constituents that rank and file officers on the street are telling them that they are not enforcing crime. This is not new. But it is very concerning in the current context. So I think there are a number of possible explanations for this. I think it's possible they are essentially campaigning, either politically, because they don't support the council member, or in some cases the mayor, or perhaps they think that they're making the case for more resources for the department. I can tell you in my ward, it is having the opposite effect. It is making people even more frustrated with the department. On the evening of violence in Uptown, that gun violence, earlier that evening, an officer had told my constituents that they would not be enforcing property crime. And it's people don't understand. So again, I can have my theory about why I think officers might be saying those things, but I can tell you that I don't think it is having the intended effect that even they wish it would be having. And so
what did she think was going to happen? Like, isn't this what you wanted? And why didn't she just tell her constituents, well, safety is white privilege and you need to get comfortable in your fear to know how other people live? Well, she can't say that, because the truth of the matter is anyone that has half a brain or common sense knows if you vote to disband and dismantle, and if you demonize your police officers and take their power away, it's not going to be the upper middle class people that suffer who live in the suburbs and gated communities. No, it's going to be the high crime, low income areas that suffer. And then what happens? Businesses pull out because they don't feel safe there. They keep getting robbed. Why would they stay? Businesses pull out, and then the people that do have the means to leave and move out will. Because why would you live in a place that doesn't have police? Nobody wants to do that. Safety should be everyone's right. And when you're voting your elected officials in, that should be the one thing that everyone agrees on. Safety, police, law and order, because without that, everything leaves. And who suffers? The poorest of the poor, the most vulnerable, who are now just prey to criminals because they don't have police there to protect them. But don't take my word for it. Let's look at a few other reactions and then we're done from this video. So the GOP candidate who is running against Ilhan Omar, and oh my gosh, I hope this person wins. Can we please get her out of city council? So he said this: the hypocrisy and failure that we're seeing from this city council is astounding and deeply troubling. Let's see. Now they're turning around and blaming these brave officers for a situation they have created. Exactly. They created this situation. They made this mess. Lisa Bender headed the way, and now she's blaming the police officers. Classy. How do these people, well, I guess they get voted in. Okay, let's look at a few tweets from other people, and then we're done. Andrew Pollock says, Minneapolis City Council in June. We voted to abolish the police department. City Council member Jamon Osmond today. Where are the police? Folks, this is why you don't elect Democrats. Okay, 3 months ago, the Minneapolis City Council wanted to abolish the police department and start over. Now they're complaining that police aren't arresting enough people. You can't make this up. Someone said, wait, do I have this one? Okay, 4 months ago, the Minneapolis City Council wanted to dismantle the police department. Today, they are hectoring the police for increased crime. They are not grounded in reality, and that is exactly it. They are not grounded in reality. They are so out of touch with their constituents. It's insane. Let me know what you guys think. Does anyone watching this live in Minneapolis or Seattle? What do you think about what's going on? Because you're probably going to have a lot better of an idea than any of us. That's it, you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.